I taste copper before I register the pain. My body lies twisted at the bottom of the basement stairs, each breath an exercise in agony. 14 steps. I counted them once when helping Dad install the banister. 14 steps between me and the wallet Renee was rifling through when I walked in after my hospital shift. Aubrey? Renee's voice floats down from above, a practiced note of concern that doesn't match the coldness in her eyes moments before she placed both hands on my shoulders and shoved. Footsteps thunder overhead. Mom appears first, her slippers sliding on the concrete as she rushes to my side. Dad follows, filling the narrow doorway with his broad shoulders. What happened? His eyes dart between us, settling on Renee. I try to push myself up, but a stabbing pain in my ribs steals my breath. She pushed. I didn't, Renee interrupts. She tripped carrying laundry down. You know how clumsy she is. Dad's face hardens as he looks at me. Is that what happened, Aubrey? I open my mouth to protest, but catch Mom's expression, that quick, fearful glance at Dad before her eyes drop to the floor. It's a look I've seen 1,000 times. A warning. We'll handle this at home, Dad announces, his voice brooking no argument. No hospitals. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. I know what handling it at home means. I close my eyes, remembering 4 months ago when Renee hurled my medical textbook at my head while I studied. The cut required 7 stitches, but Dad called it an accident and stitched it himself in the downstairs bathroom. When I cried from the pain, he tightened his grip on my arm. Stop being dramatic, Aubrey. You're embarrassing us. Later, Mom cornered me in the kitchen, voice barely above a whisper. Just keep your head down until residency is over. It's only 2 more years. 2 more years of this. 2 more years of accidents. I press my palm against my side, feeling the unnatural give of bone beneath skin. I can't breathe properly, I say, my voice steadier than I expect. I need medical attention. I need medical attention. Dad steps closer, lowering his voice. What you need is to stop making a scene. We have company coming for dinner. My hands tremble as I reach for my phone in my pocket. Then suddenly, they don't. A strange calm washes over me as I pull it out. I'm calling Aunt Maggie. Something flickers across Dad's face, surprise, maybe even fear. He's not used to defiance. I'm taking her to the ER, Mom says, and I nearly drop my phone in shock. This is different, Richard. Dad blocks the doorway, arms crossed. Fine, but Aubrey, you tripped while carrying laundry. That's what happened. Say anything else, and you can forget about our support during your residency. The threat hangs between us. Without their help with rent, with the occasional groceries and gas money, my residence salary wouldn't stretch far enough. I'd lose the apartment, maybe even the residency itself. Renee smirks from behind Dad's shoulder. Daddy, will this affect my summer internship? My perfect academic record can't have any complications. The emphasis makes her meaning clear. My sister, the golden child, must remain untarnished. Mom helps me stand, and the room spins. Through the haze of pain comes a realization that lands like another fall. My family will sacrifice me to protect their image, Renee's future, Dad's reputation, Mom's perfect family facade. As they guide me up the stairs, Dad's hand on my elbow feels less like support and more like a warning. I swallow the taste of blood, already rehearsing the lie I'll tell at the hospital. But something has shifted inside me, broken loose with the same snap I felt in my ribs. This time is different. This time, I know exactly what happened. And someday soon, so will everyone else. 20 minutes later, at the emergency room, Dr. Fletcher's fingertips hover over the purple-black marks on my side. These are fingerprints, Aubrey, not from a fall. I stare at the ceiling tiles, counting the tiny holes as she photographs each bruise. 14 holes across, 14 stairs down. The symmetry feels important somehow. 4 broken ribs, hairline fracture of the left wrist, and these older injuries. She points to the X-ray illuminated on the wall. See these calcified areas? Previous fractures. Multiple ones. Tears slide silently from the corners of my eyes, tracking cold paths into my hair. I don't bother wiping them away. I need to ask you directly. Her voice softens but remains professional. Did someone push you down those stairs? When I nod, something inside me cracks deeper than any bone. I'm required by law to report suspected abuse. Doctor. Fletcher's pen scratches against her clipboard. Hospital security will stay outside your door for now. The word abuse hangs between us. It seems too large for what happened, then suddenly not large enough. My family will be here soon, I whisper. Doctor. Fletcher squeezes my hand. I'll be here too. When they arrive, my father immediately takes control of the room, standing over my bed while my mother arranges flowers in a vase with trembling fingers. Renee leans against the window, examining her nails. Dr. Fletcher stands at the foot of my bed, clipboard pressed against her chest like armor. The injuries Aubrey sustained are inconsistent with a simple fall while carrying laundry. Doctor, Fletcher says. The pattern and placement of bruising indicate she was pushed with considerable force. Father's face hardens. Are you suggesting someone in our family hurt her? I'm stating medical facts, she replies evenly. X-rays also show multiple previous fractures in various stages of healing. This is absurd. Father's voice drops to that dangerous quiet I know too well. I sit on this hospital's board. I've contributed significantly to the new pediatric wing. Perhaps you should consider your position carefully before making unfounded accusations. Dr. Fletcher doesn't flinch. The evidence isn't unfounded, Dr. Callahan, and my position is as Aubrey's physician, not as your employee. Aubrey has always been clumsy, Mother interjects, arranging and rearranging the same flower. She falls all the time. Renee snorts. Besides, if something did happen, she probably deserved it. Always being the perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect everything. It gets old. The room falls silent. Dr. Fletcher writes something on her clipboard. You just admitted to assaulting your sister, she says to Renee without looking up. Father steps between them. My daughter said no such thing, and this conversation is over. He turns to me, lowering his voice. Aubrey, this ridiculous story puts your residency at risk. What hospital wants a doctor who invents abuse allegations? If this becomes public, your career is finished before it starts. The threat lands exactly as intended. 2 years of residency, thousands of dollars in student loans, countless sleepless nights studying all potentially wasted. Not to mention, he continues, without our financial support, you'll be homeless by next month. Your residence salary barely covers groceries, let alone rent in this city. Mother places her hand on mine, her touch light as tissue paper. Sweetheart, please. This is all a misunderstanding. Dr. Fletcher clears her throat. There's something else you should know, Aubrey. Untreated injuries like yours can lead to chronic pain, decreased lung capacity, even nerve damage. Medical consequences don't disappear just because they're inconvenient. Her words strike a chord. How many medical consequences have I already ignored to keep peace? A knock at the door interrupts the standoff. A woman with close-cropped gray hair and a detective's badge enters. Detective Carla Monroe. She nods to everyone before focusing on me. I'd like to speak with Aubrey alone. Father begins to protest, but Detective Monroe stands firm. Hospital security will escort you to the waiting area. After they leave, Detective Monroe pulls up a chair. She doesn't rush me, doesn't push. She simply listens, recording everything methodically as I describe what happened, not just today, but all the other accidents that weren't accidents at all. For the first time, someone believes me without question. The relief is almost as painful as my broken ribs. As I lay in that hospital bed, watching my family prepare to sacrifice me again, I wondered if walking away from them meant losing everything I'd worked for, or if staying would cost me something even more valuable, my self-worth. What would you choose? Security with conditions, or freedom with uncertainty? 6 weeks later, after I was discharged and sued my family for abuse, and started going to work again, the emergency board meeting notification appeared in my inbox at 5:43 a.m., just as I'm finishing an overnight shift. My father's name gleams at the top of the recipient list. A special session to review, concerning patterns of diagnostic overreach, the euphemism for doctor. Fletcher's career assassination barely disguised. Did you see this? Dr. Fletcher appears beside me, her normally composed face tight with anger. Your father works fast. My stomach knots as I scan the rest of the email. I'm sorry. This is because of me. Number. Her voice turns firm. This is because of him. There's a difference. I nod, but the weight on my chest only increases as 2 nurses walk past, their conversation dropping to whispers when they spot me. One glances back with what looks uncomfortably like pity. That afternoon, my residency director calls me into his office. He doesn't offer me a seat. Your parents contacted me with concerns about your stability, he says, studying a folder rather than meeting my eyes. They mentioned a history of exaggeration, emotional problems. The words hang between us like poison. Renee's handiwork, surgical in its precision. I see. My voice sounds distant to my own ears. Under the circumstances, perhaps you should consider a leave of absence. A leave would validate their claims, I say, surprised by my steadiness. I'm not unstable. I'm injured. He finally looks up, assessing me through narrowed eyes. Political situations like this get messy. The board has significant influence over our program funding. My phone buzzes again as I leave his office. Mother's fifth voicemail today. I listen to her tearful accusations about tearing apart the family as I limp to my car, each step a reminder of what family has cost me. In days to come, apartment hunting with broken ribs is its own special torture. Each staircase, each doorway to inspect sends daggers through my side. The cheapest place I can find costs twice what I've budgeted. Without my parents' help, my residence salary stretches tissue paper thin across rent, utilities, and the sudden expenses of starting over. At night, I curl around my pain in a motel room that smells of industrial cleaner and cigarettes. The front desk clerk eyed my bruises with knowing sympathy when I paid for the week in cash. "Leaving somebody, honey?" she'd asked. I'd nodded, the truth of it settling into my bones. I am leaving somebody the version of myself that believed family loyalty required my silence. The sideways glances from colleagues grow more obvious each day. Whispered conversations halt when I approach. Dr. Travers, who usually seeks my help with difficult IV placements, suddenly manages fine without me. Someone left a pamphlet about mental health services in my locker, the word delusions circled in red pen. I begin carrying a small notebook, documenting every interaction with precise times and witnesses. My phone fills with saved voicemails, mother's tearful manipulations, father's thinly veiled threats. During a meeting where the chief resident distributes new schedules, I position my phone to record when he accidentally assigns me 6 consecutive overnight shifts. Administrative error, he claims when I question it. His eyes slide toward the door where my father often enters for his morning rounds. "I'd like that corrected, please," I say, holding his gaze until he looks away first. Back in the locker room, my hands shake so badly I can't work the combination lock. The adrenaline crash leaves me lightheaded, leaning against the cool metal. When I finally get the door open, a paper bag sits on my folded scrubs. Inside, a still warm coffee and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. A sticky note in Dr. Fletcher's handwriting reads, "Some days we just need to be reminded we're not fighting alone. Your courage matters." I eat slowly, savoring each bite. The first food in days that doesn't taste like fear. The hospital chapel remains empty most afternoons. I sit in the back row, finding strange comfort in its silence after my shift ends. Today, the door opens just as I prepare to leave. Mother slips in, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands clutching her purse like a shield. "Aubrey," she whispers, sliding into the pew beside me. "Please, can we talk?" I shift away, the movement pulling at my still-healing ribs. "Can't you just say you were confused?" she pleads. "Your father built this life for us." "He built a life where Renee could hurt me without consequences," I say, the words emerging with surprising clarity. "I'll talk to your father," she promises, reaching for my hand. "If you drop the charges, things can go back to normal. We can be a family again." The familiar bargain my safety traded for their comfort. How many times have I accepted this transaction? I stand despite the pain, looking down at her hunched figure. I became a doctor to heal people. I can't heal anyone if I can't even protect myself. Her face crumples. "You don't understand what you're doing to us." "I understand exactly what you've done to me." The revelation feels like oxygen after years underwater. And I won't let you do it anymore. The following week brings unexpected allies. Dr. Fletcher testifies before the Hospital Ethics Committee, methodically presenting my x-rays and documentation. "These injuries," she says, pointing to the fracture patterns, "are inconsistent with a fall while carrying laundry. They are, however, entirely consistent with being forcefully pushed downstairs." Detective Monroe, who first interviewed me in the hospital, provides a protective escort when I return to my parents' house to collect essential belongings. "Take your time," she says, positioning herself between me and my father's thunderous glare. "I've got nowhere to be. While my family demands silence as proof of love, these strangers offer me protection without conditions. They listen when I speak. They believe what I say. With each person who stands beside me, my voice grows stronger in the investigation interviews. The tremor in my hands steadies. That evening, I call Aunt Maggie from the motel parking lot. Rain drums against the roof of my car, matching the pounding of my heart. "Aubrey," she answers on the first ring. "I've been waiting to hear from you." "I need a place to stay," I say, the admission burning my throat, "just until I figure things out." "My guest room is yours for as long as you need," she says without hesitation. "I've already made up the bed." "They're saying terrible things about me," I warn her, wiping away unexpected tears. "Dad will try to turn everyone against you too." "Let him try." Her voice hardens. "I've been documenting their accidents for years, sweetheart. Your father might be surprised by what I've kept." 40 minutes later, I stand on Aunt Maggie's front porch, a single suitcase at my feet, rain soaking through my jacket. The door opens before I can knock, warm light spilling out around her familiar silhouette. "Come in," she says, reaching for both my hands. "You're home now." Next day, the kitchen table at Aunt Maggie's transforms into our war room. Medical records fan across the oak surface as I organize them by date, photographs of injuries paired with hospital reports. Maggie's meticulous notes about my accidents over the years fill a 3-ring binder: dates, times, explanations my parents gave her, and her observations. "You've been documenting all this time?" I ask, flipping through pages spanning back to my high school years. Maggie's lips form a tight line. "I tried reporting it once. Your father convinced everyone I was a jealous sister-in-law trying to cause trouble." She taps the binder. "So I started keeping records, waiting for when you were ready." Detective Monroe calls that afternoon, her voice steady. "We're filing charges against Renee. The DA believes we have enough to make assault with intent stick." I grip the phone tighter. "And my parents?" The investigation continues. The court-appointed advocate is concerned about the long-term pattern. After the call, I meet with my attorney, Caroline Winters. She spreads our timeline across her desk. "The evidence doesn't lie: 15 accidents in 5 years, escalating in severity. You've built a solid case," Caroline says. For the first time since the fall, I feel my spine straighten. My father strikes before the week ends. The residency director, Dr. Howard, calls me into his office, his expression grave. "Your father contacted the board about your situation." He folds his hands on the desk. "He suggested your continued presence might disrupt hospital operations." My stomach drops. Years of sacrifice, crushing student loans, all for nothing. "I understand if you need to let me go," I whisper. Dr. Howard's eyebrows shoot up. "Let you go?" "Aubrey, I'm placing you on paid medical leave with full benefits and support services until this is resolved." He leans forward. "Your father doesn't control this department." I blink back tears. 2 days later, Renee appears in the hospital lobby during my brief return to collect research materials. Security intercepts her before she reaches the elevator. "I just want to talk to my sister," she shouts, loud enough for everyone to hear. Officer Sanchez steps between us. "Ma'am, you're violating a restraining order." Renee's face contorts. "This is ridiculous. She's my sister." The next morning, my phone buzzes with a text from Caroline. "The judge has added additional restrictions to Renee's release conditions: no contact through third parties. Minimum distance increased to 500 feet. At a medical conference downtown later that week, I spot 2 board members who've always supported my father. They see me, exchange glances, and change direction. Word spreads quickly in hospital circles. When my attorney asks if I want to pursue maximum penalties against my sister and parents 2 days later, I hesitate. Would justice mean seeing them punished? Or would finding my own path forward, free from their control, be the greater victory? The question haunts me as I review the growing case file. Dr. Fletcher organizes an unexpected show of support. 10 colleagues from different departments sign sworn statements about my professional conduct, character, and the injuries they've noticed over time. "We've seen the bruises you tried to hide," Dr. Fletcher says quietly. "The makeup covering that black eye last winter didn't fool anyone." Aunt Maggie reveals her documentation to the prosecutor, who calls it exactly the pattern evidence we needed. The timeline grows more damning: 23 incidents over 8 years, each one dismissed, minimized, or hidden. My phone fills with messages from fellow residents. Whatever shifts you need covered, I'm there. We believe you. Take all the time you need. The hospital board meets in an emergency session a week later. Father's attempts to leverage his position against me triggers an ethics investigation into abuse of authority. He's temporarily removed from committee assignments pending review. At Sunday brunch with Maggie, my phone lights up with my mother's number, but I decline. Your father's colleagues won't look him in the eye anymore, Maggie says, watching me debate answering. Nancy Miller canceled their dinner plans last night, first time in 15 years. The call goes to voicemail. 10 minutes later, Maggie's phone rings instead. She answers, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. Elizabeth, calm down. Yes, she's here. No, I don't think that's a good idea right now. She glances at me. We all make mistakes, Liz. Some just have bigger consequences. After she hangs up, Maggie reaches for my hand. Your mother's crying, says she might have made mistakes. I stare out the window. 30 years of mistakes. The court date arrives next week. I'll face them all together, father, mother, Renee, for the first time since that day at the bottom of the stairs. The thought sends ice through my veins, but when I check my reflection, I notice something different. The woman staring back stands taller, shoulders squared instead of hunched. Her eyes hold steady. I think of Dr. Fletcher, Detective Monroe, Caroline, the residents who've rallied around me, and Aunt Maggie, the family I chose instead of the one I was born into. For the first time in my life, I'm not standing alone. A day before the courtroom hearing, my parents demand a meeting in the hospital, which I attend. The conference room feels too small, the air stale with tension. My father sits across from me, his posture military straight, while my mother fusses with her pearl necklace, fingers trembling slightly as she adjusts it for the 5th time. Through the glass walls, I watch attorneys mill about in the hallway, their voices a distant hum. We want to resolve this before it goes any further, Father says, his professional tone almost convincing. He slides a manila folder toward me, a settlement offer. I don't reach for it. Weeks ago, I would have lunged for this lifeline. Now, I let it sit between us like the trap I know it is. Your residency tuition paid in full, plus a modest stipend. He continues, tapping the folder with his manicured fingernail. Enough to secure an apartment near the hospital. Mother leans forward, her perfume washing over me. We're family, Aubrey. Family matters should stay private. Private. The word tastes bitter. Like my medical records you accessed without permission? Father's jaw tightens. I have connections at that hospital you seem to forget about. One phone call about your emotional instability during your residency evaluation next month could. Richard, Mother whispers, placing her hand on his arm. He shrugs her off. Aubrey needs to understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly. The weight of his threat hangs in the air, my career, my future, everything I've worked for balanced on the edge of his influence. But something has changed since I walked down those basement stairs. Something broke loose when my ribs did. I reach into my bag, movements deliberate, unhurried. The manila envelope I pull out matches theirs in every way except for the contents. I slide it across the polished table. What's this? Father asks, not bothering to open it. Letters of support from the hospital administration. I keep my voice level as I watch his expression shift. The ethics committee cleared me of any professional concerns last week. They found your attempts to access my records and pressure my colleagues particularly interesting. Mother's hand flies to her mouth. Aubrey, you didn't. I also have this. I place a second letter beside the first. The medical director has offered me a research position after my residency. Fully funded. Fully funded. Father's fingers curl into fists. The vein in his temple pulses as he scans the letterhead, the signatures. I recognize the moment reality sets in. He's lost control of the narrative. I don't need your money, I say, standing slowly. I never needed your approval. My voice doesn't shake. My hands remain steady. The realization hits me like a physical sensation. I'm no longer afraid of them. Father rises, looming over the table. You're making a terrible mistake. No, I say. I'm finally correcting one. Mother begins to cry, silent tears tracking through her foundation. Not for me, for the consequences finally catching up to them. I walk toward the door, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Aubrey, please, she calls after me. I don't look back. The next day, the courtroom feels cavernous compared to the conference room. Light streams through tall windows, illuminating dust motes that dance in the air. I sit at the plaintiff's table, Aunt Maggie on one side, Dr. Fletcher on the other. Their presence steadies me more than the chair beneath me. Across the aisle, Renee stares at her hands. Father whispers urgently to their attorney. Mother looks anywhere but at me. When the judge calls me to testify, my legs carry me forward without hesitation. The oath feels solemn and right on my lips. I've spent my life healing others. Today I begin healing myself. I speak clearly as I describe the pattern of abuse. The textbook incident that required 7 stitches. The falls that somehow always happened when Renee was angry. The broken fingers from kitchen accidents during med school finals. Dr. Fletcher's medical documentation appears on screens throughout the courtroom. X-rays of my ribs, photographs of finger-shaped bruises, healed fractures that tell their own silent story. "Why are you pursuing this case, Dr. Callahan?" the prosecutor asks. I look directly at my family for the first time. I'm here because doctors protect people who can't protect themselves, including me. Clust. Renee crumples forward, her shoulders shaking. When presented with time-stamped text messages, showing her intent before shoving me, she breaks down completely. She was always so perfect. She sobs. Dad always compared me to her. I just wanted her to fail at something for once. Father stands abruptly. This is absurd. My daughter is clearly... Mr. Callahan, the judge interrupts, voice sharp as a scalpel. Interrupt these proceedings again and you'll be held in contempt. Father sinks back into his seat, face flushed with an anger he can no longer freely express. The testimony concludes. The judge's decision comes swiftly. A full protection order against my entire family. Renee faces additional charges for assault. This court takes an extremely dim view, the judge says, removing her glasses, of those who use positions of authority to enable abuse, particularly of a family member. Dr. Callahan's evidence demonstrates a troubling pattern that this court cannot ignore. The gavel falls with a crack that echoes through the courtroom. It sounds like freedom. Outside, sunshine warms my face. Aunt Maggie squeezes my hand as reporters cluster at the bottom of the courthouse steps. We'll avoid them today. There will be time for public statements later. Detective Monroe approaches with news about sentencing recommendations. Renee, probation, community service, mandatory counseling. My parents, social and professional consequences already unfolding. Father removed from the hospital board, their standing in the community crumbling. As we prepare to leave, a familiar voice calls my name. Mother stands alone at the edge of the crowd, her eyes red-rimmed. She reaches toward me, and something catches my attention, a purplish mark circling her wrist, partially hidden by her bracelet. Our eyes meet. For the first time, I recognize in her gaze something I've seen in my own mirror for years. Fear. 6 months later, morning sunshine streams through Aunt Maggie's kitchen windows as I sip coffee at the breakfast nook. The aroma of cinnamon pancakes fills the air, a stark contrast to the tense silence that used to accompany my family breakfasts. Did you review your presentation notes? Aunt Maggie slides a plate in front of me, her silver-streaked hair catching the light. 3 times. I touch my side, an unconscious habit, though my ribs have long since healed. Still nervous. Maggie laughs, the sound warm and unrestricted. The hospital's star resident. Nervous about speaking to a room of doctors? The same woman who stood her ground in court? I smile despite myself. In 6 months, I've become accustomed to conversation without walking on eggshells, to laughter without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Later that afternoon at the medical conference, I stand before a room of colleagues. My hands remain steady as I click through slides, showing injury patterns consistent with domestic abuse. The signs are often there. I tell them, my voice clear. A patient who minimizes injuries. Explanations that don't match the trauma. Multiple healed fractures in various stages. From the back row, Aunt Maggie records the presentation on her phone, pride evident in her posture. When I finish to generous applause, Dr. Fletcher gives me a subtle thumbs up from the front row. 2 weeks later, I recognize the look immediately. My patient, a woman in her 30s with suspicious bruising around her wrist, avoids eye contact while explaining how she fell against the counter. I pull up a chair instead of standing over her, lower my clipboard, create space for truth. Sometimes injuries tell a different story than the one we're ready to share. I say softly, remembering my own rehearsed explanations. Whatever that story is, I'm here to listen. Her eyes fill with tears. My husband. I reach for her hand, not as a doctor, but as someone who understands. Sometimes the bravest thing we do is tell our truth, even when those who should believe us don't. She nods, a barely perceptible movement. I slide a resource packet toward her, the same one Detective Monroe helped me develop for the hospital. That evening, Aunt Maggie hosts a small dinner gathering at her coastal home. Dr. Fletcher brings her famous key lime pie. Detective Monroe arrives with case files tucked under her arm, always working. Ethan, a physical therapist I met during my recovery, brings flowers that match the blue of the ocean visible through the windows. I notice how he pulls out my chair, his fingers lightly brushing my shoulder in a gesture that asks permission rather than assumes it. Maggie raises her glass. To healing that comes from being truly seen and believed. The words settle around us like a blessing. The following Monday, I hang framed X-rays in my new office. The evidence that once documented my breaking now serves as testament to my survival. Beside them, a letter confirming my acceptance to a specialized trauma-informed care fellowship. My phone buzzes with a text. My mother. Not asking for forgiveness, but sharing that she's started therapy and has moved into her own apartment across town. The message ends with, "When you're ready. If you're ever ready." That evening, Aunt Maggie and I walk along the beach, our arms linked as waves chase our footprints in the sand. The setting sun paints the water copper and gold. "Have you thought about your mother's message?" she asks. I watch a seagull dive and rise again. As I consider what forgiveness might look like, I wonder if it's about welcoming people back into your life, or if it's sometimes just about releasing yourself from the weight of anger so you can move forward. What would you choose? Maintaining distance with peace, or attempting reconciliation with boundaries? Maggie squeezes my arm gently, understanding that some questions need time before answers can form.